Okay, I took a little bit, if I had another 5 minutes, I could even do a PowerPoint, but anyhow, I think that there were two presentations. The first was on technology, and the second was more about regulation. And I think that the results are quite. I can understand them, and I think that what I would say, I think maybe a little bit controversial, but that's the reason you brought me here. So I think the first thing is that one conclusion is that if you ask that on one hand you have the result of math and kind, the GMO is very effective. On the other hand, if you ask NGO, you got that it's not effective. So to some extent, that is a second thing. The other thing is that productivity of the poor countries is growing the least, and it's declining relative to the US. That's the thing that is the most worrisome to me. All the other stuff is GMO, this is nonsense. What really happened is the productivity of the poor is declining. And to me, I think it's related to the first question. All this debate about GMO, it's more than about GMO. It's debate, in my view, about who decides about technology. Is it the agronomist or is it the bureaucrat? Is it people in the city with good intention and money to give donation, or people that work on the field and make choices? And I really think that what happened is that in the US, it's decided by agronomists. In Europe, it was decided by agronomists. Now it's decided by NGO more and more. To me, NGO are very good in raising money from rich people. They are not very good in helping small farmers to farm, because they don't know nothing about farming. So that is very strong. It's a little bit political, but let's go further. Now, okay. The first thing is about the issues of technology, categorization of technologies. I think this is very, very important, but I'm afraid that people are reinventing the wheel. We know that there are three types of innovation, generally, institutional, managerial, and technological. We know it, there is a lot of literature about it. If you look at my survey and FEDER, a lot of it is there. We also know that technologies appear in packages. We also know there are several other categories of technologies that to me are more important if they are embodied or disembodied. Embodied technologies generally technology that's embodied in product can be sold by the private sector. Disembodied are really a lot of time require the public sector. So I think that it's really worthwhile to look at the literature and to develop categories that consistent with what we know. We have a 50-year-old literature about all this. So that but it's really important to separate between institutional, managerial, and technological, because a lot of what we do is managerial, like management of supply chain, management, resource allocation, risk management. All these are really important. Now let's look at the survey on relevance. I think this was really interesting. What are very relevant technologies? The NGO found that very relevant technology is the seed varieties and food fortification. What is not very relevant is GMO. Now, what does GMO is? GMO is seed varieties. GMO is a lot of food fortification. So either seed varieties and food fortification are relevant or they are not relevant. The big issue with GMO is that GMO is not one technology. It includes many, many traits. And if you have regulation that you don't allow any of the traits to appear, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to me if you don't have it. Before we have the car and we had horses, cars were not relevant. So to me, I think that this survey is a little bit funny, because if you ban something, it's irrelevant. So why ask a question about something that doesn't exist? But I think it's really important because we have to tell people what is the context. You have a contradiction. The other thing is, GMO is not one technology. It includes many, many traits. And if you have regulation that you don't allow any of the traits to appear, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to me if you don't have it. Before we have the car and we had horses, cars were not relevant. So to me, I think that this survey is a little bit funny, because if you ban something, it's irrelevant. So why ask a question about something that doesn't exist? But I think it's really important because we have to tell people what is the context. people spoke about farmer schools. I agree that extension is important, but there is also a lot of literature that deal with it. To me, there is no doubt that farmer education is important. How you do it is a totally different story. Like Maximo told me about a system where you educate children about farming and they teach their parents. You know what? That's the way agricultural technology was introduced in America. How many of you have heard about 4-H? 4-H is a system where you teach kids about farming. I look at the history of 4-H after speaking with Maximo. 4-H was established when the parents didn't know how to write and the kids will learn how to write. So you taught the kid to teach the parents. This is creative. A lot of farmer schools, when you bring a professor of ecology to teach farmers that don't give a damn about ecology, are not useful. They help the professor. So I think how you do it is very important. Now, obviously I like Martin Kame survey for two reasons. First, the paper proved a theory that all the hypotheses that yield effect will be higher in developing countries and that there are variation among crops. That's something that we proved before by theory. We tell you that it's not a bad idea to have theory. We proved it 10 years ago before we had this survey. So doing theory doesn't matter, and I think the results are interesting. Also, I have two papers, one in Annual Review of Environmental and Resource Economics, and the other one in Journal of Economic Perspectives that basically use a macro analysis of the same result, and they got more or less with the same number. So that is very, in a way it's very interesting. If you want to look at health effect and technology effect, look at our survey in the Annual Review of Resource Economics. It's done with Ellen Bennett, with a big biotech scholar, and we have the list of all the traits that are available. We have now 300 traits, about 50 traits that improve food nutrition, about 20 traits that increase shelf life, about 15 or 20 traits that increase the quality of feed. So basically, the nutritional quality of soybean or corn is much higher than it was before. If you use this trait, productivity can go, and these traits are available. No one are using it. So if people care about new varieties, that they should do. They should really regulate GMO less. Now, the other thing is the issue of productivity, and the thing that I found actually surprising is that the developing countries are falling behind. Now, and I really think that there are three reasons. First, in Europe and the US, labor productivity will increase because there are growing labor shortages. In the US, you have regulation on immigration, and people don't want to work in the farm, and in Europe, people get older. I was asked to work for some company to develop milking cows in Denmark, not because the farmers have money and they want to spend it, because they get old, they have difficult time find workers, that's a problem. In developing countries, labor is abundant. That's number one. Number two is the other thing is the fact that you basically regulate a lot of the most important technology. If I look and see what today people in the public sector are studying, most of the emphasis is to develop technologies that are good ecologically. Not, oh man, I'm an environmental economist, I care about ecology. But to some extent, if you emphasize technologies that are good ecologically, you emphasize, for example, biological control, where you ask subsistence farmers to get up in the morning to count insects. This is not something that improves people's productivity. Now, on the other hand, GMO, the most important impact of GMO is that it increases labor productivity. So to some extent, the fact that you have all these biases on technology development that is not based on market value, but are only based about wishful thinking of different groups, that is something that affects labor productivity. So there is a cause and effect there that is very, very important. That one is to to pay attention to. So this is very important. So to some extent, now, so to me, I really think that this is the most worrisome thing, because I really worry that a lot of young kids, as they get more educated, would leave the farm and would come back. And then you start having labor shortages in developing countries. Already you start having labor shortages in developing countries. And if you won't think about technologies that allow you to replace this labor, you will have a lot of problems. So I really think that we really have to introduce more economic and agronomy in development of technology, where we provide the right incentive to pay attention to the environment, rather than to let technology control by certifiers and NGOs and a lot of people that don't really think about real cost of a lot of the activities. Now, with the issues of the case studies, who is producing, what matters. Now, I agree that access is really, really important. I think the dependence of business companies is not that bad. Everyone in Europe is dependent on business companies. Everyone in the US is dependent on business companies. To me, developing a system that you make people independent on business company wouldn't increase the food securities, because when you have businesses, they provide supply chain, they build airports. When a business company decides to grow flowers in Ethiopia, they build the airport, and maybe they even pay for a road, and they work for a government to improve transportation. So I really think you need to introduce the business, and developing independence for business for sure is a mechanism to make sure that you are really poor. Europe basically solved its food poverty food security system in the 19th century by building transportation, encouraging private sector, etc. So having independence of business indicator is not very good, in my view, is not a very good indicator. Another thing is constraints on innovation. Now, this is again, it's a subject to study incredibly for a lot. There was a lot of effort to study it by people from US, Europe, and developing countries in the 1990s. IPR is a constraint, but for most of Africa, if you produce for domestic market, IPR is irrelevant because patents are not registered. Second is there are institutions like PIPRA that basically allow you access to intellectual property for free. I actually was asked to design PIPRA for France. PIPRA is public intellectual property resources for agriculture. And anyone that has been working in this field knows that the number one constraint today to introduce new technologies is regulation rather than IPR. If business has freedom to operate, and if you develop, use NGOs and foundations, etc., to develop free exchange for intellectual property, you can solve the problem. See what happened with medicine. We now develop a mechanism that allow you to provide cheap medicine to people in developing countries. In agriculture, the financial stakes are much lower. So I really think you need to think about mechanisms to provide free, to reduce the barrier to intellectual property. But that's not the biggest constraint. You have ATF in Africa, AATF, which is a very important mechanism. I think the number one constraint are regulatory constraints. But in the moment that you will abolish a lot of the constraints on GMO, constraint on other things, emphasis on, we need to have some certification, but they shouldn't be a barrier for innovation. They should be an aid for innovation. So to me, the key emphasis in a research agenda is first to recognize what are the constraints to development of technology. What are the honest constraints? How can you really explain the relative decline in productivity with respect to Europe? Maybe it relates to this constraint. How you engage the private sector? When we look at the case study, did anyone speak with some of the private companies? On one hand, we have land grabbing. On the other hand, at a lot of time, some of these activities of the private sector may increase productivity. How to bring it together? to me, I really think that we really need to have, when we look at technology, we have to think a little bit more about regulation, engagement with the private sector, and who sets the technological agenda. Is it set by people that think about income and money and growth, or people that think about the environment first and technology and income later? I really think that, unfortunately, that's what happened in Africa today. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.